As you may or may not know, my wife and I just got back from Vegas. It was a great trip. We ate, we drank, we had a blast. But then we got home and looked at the credit card, and I gotta say, it doesn't matter how much fun you're having, $25 for a drink is a ripoff. Frickin' Vegas. I hate getting ripped off, and so do the lads over at Harry's. They spent years watching the razor blade companies rip people off and said, no more. Not all heroes wear capes, my friends, and they want to prove that they're legit by offering you hot dogs a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. I've been telling you about them for months, and I'm genuinely proud to have Harry's as a sponsor of this show. I wasn't kidding. The plastic, futuristic-looking crap razors you get at the store are overpriced and they're poor quality. Harry's blades are crisp, clean, and classy. They're the kind of razor you'd expect your grandpa to have on his bathroom counter. And most importantly, they work. Shave after shave, they're so smooth, they're precise. I used to go through the crappy store blades all the time, but Harry's are built to last. And they're not just better quality than the other names, they're more affordable. And they deliver. Just set your schedule, and for as little as $2, new blades, shaving creams, lotions, everything you need, right to your door when you need it. I genuinely cannot think of a reason not to try Harry's. And I'm not just saying this because they're sponsors. They're the best shaving supplies I've ever used. Try them out, and if you're not happy, your shave's on them. And unlike the other subscriptions, they're really easy to cancel if you want to too, which is a nice bonus, but believe me, you're not going to want to cancel. Getting ripped off isn't funny. Switch to Harry's. Get started with a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. That's harrys.com/RTG for a $3 trial set. Remember the Game is brought to you by my website, abcomedy.net. As you may or may not know, I'm a comedian by night. And as much as I love talking about old video games, telling jokes is how I actually pay my bills. So please check out my website. In addition to old episodes of this podcast, you'll find my blog, videos of my stand-up, all of my upcoming shows, and my contact information. If you need a comedian for your next fundraiser, corporate event, house party, whatever you got going on, hit me up. Again, it's abcomedy.net. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe to it. Please leave us a good review. And most importantly, please tell a friend. I'd really appreciate it. There'll be a new episode every single Wednesday. Thank you guys so much for the support. I hope you enjoy the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Remember the Game, my retro gaming podcast, where every single Wednesday, a buddy of mine and I sit down and geek out about the games we played back in the day. My name is Adam Blank. Thank you so much for listening. If you're new to the show, welcome aboard. If you've come back, thanks for hanging around. This week, episode 45, my pal Ty, stand-up comedian from Fort McMurray, is back in the house. We are going to talk NES, and more specifically, A Boy and His Blob, Trouble on Blobolonia, A Boy and His Blob. I'm not saying the second part. Puzzle game for the NES, one of my favorites growing up. I wouldn't necessarily say a classic, but it's got a cult following. I like it. I posted the teaser yesterday on my Instagram and stuff, and it was just a picture of jellybeans, and a lot of people got it. So I wasn't sure how many people would even know what game we were talking about based on that hint. But yeah, this one's going to be fun, I think. I hope. I pray that it's going to be fun. I mentioned my Instagram. You guys know I have to ramble for a few minutes before I get to the podcast or the talk about the game. I mentioned my Instagram. We have Instagram and we have Twitter. Remember the Game does. It's at Member the Game, not Remember, but just Member. MEMBER the Game. You can reach out to us on there, contact us. We follow back and stuff like that. Quick shout out to, I hope I'm saying your name right, bro, Alejandro. I don't know how to pronounce I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce your last name. Plus, I don't know if you want your whole Instagram handle given out or not. He's been listening to the podcast on Spotify. He's new to the show. He pointed out that episodes 1 through 39 are missing on Spotify. It is a pain in the ass story. I was going to say a long story, but it's not. Basically, apparently there was a problem with the format I was using to upload them to Spotify, and now they're gone, apparently. So episodes 40 and on are there. Shouldn't be a problem anymore. If you're new to the show and you're trying to go through the back catalog, which seems to be what happens to most people when they find the podcast, they at least go looking for the games they know. And you're listening on Spotify, I'm very sorry that those episodes are missing. You can find it on just about everything else. It's on, I think they're on Google Play. I know they're on iTunes. You can find them on Podbean. They're on YouTube. You can stream them off of our website, which is rememberthegamepodcast.com. They're everywhere. Thanks for listening to them. I really appreciate it, Alejandro. Thanks for the reach out. Sorry about the mix up there, man. So Twitter and Instagram at Remember the Game. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/rememberthegame. And we have our website, rememberthegamepodcast.com. And we are coming soon to Twitch, I think. I have signed up. I have done a little bit of homework, a little bit of research into it. Much like when I started podcasting, I know fucking nothing about streaming or Twitch or anything. Apparently, I can't just upload video right away. I have to reach a certain level there first. Otherwise, I have to stream live, and then I can use it as a video on there. That's not an easy thing to do with this podcast because we often record in the middle of the afternoon, me and my guests. Usually, I'll have like a day where I'll have 4 or 5 people come over and each record 2 episodes, and that'll get me going for a couple of months. So I'm still working on what we're going to do on Twitch, but it is coming. I got a few really exciting things to do with the podcast here in the coming weeks. I'm hoping to drop it all around episode 50, which is only 5 weeks away now, which is pretty exciting to me. I know the game, I know the guest, and I'm hoping to just really drop the next step of this podcast right at that same time, episode 50. Basically, the podcast is going to be leveling up, I think, and I hope. It's going to be more content for you guys. It's going to be a much bigger commitment for myself, but that's something that I've been flip-flopping on for quite a long time. As anyone that's listened to this podcast for any regularity knows, it's something I talk about almost every week, and I finally decided to make a little bit more of a commitment to it. I think that I'm going to get on my soapbox here for half a second, and then I'm going to get back to video games. I think a lot of people hesitate to try things sometimes, take leaps, and give things a shot, be it a podcast, writing, performing, learning how to do something, whatever, because it's hard, and it seems like it's going to take forever, and you think that, when it comes to creating, like with podcast or YouTube or Twitch or something, maybe you think you'll never get a big listener base, and then what's the point? I would just say if you're I felt like that about stand-up comedy. Again, as you probably, anyone that listens to this knows because I rant about it at the beginning of the show, I am a stand-up comedian. I would call myself a borderline professional comedian. I don't really have a day job. I have a couple side things I do, but I'm also not a touring national headliner or anything like that. But it's been 3.5 years since I started stand-up. And for anyone that doesn't know, when I started, I drove a forklift. I worked in a warehouse. I was 32 years old. And I just decided this is something I've wanted to try my whole life. I'm going to give it a shot. And in 3.5 years, I've managed to turn it into a semi-career. And it's been a lot of hard work. And I still have a long, long way to go. But this podcast has been the same thing for me. When I originally started podcasting, doing a different one, it was called Adam Wastes Time, and it was a comedy podcast, just me talking about my life and stand-up, that got like 5 listens a week. We did about 80 episodes, but the reason I did it was not necessarily to gain a ton of listeners. I just wanted to learn how to do this podcasting thing. I bought some equipment. I invested a little bit of money, a lot of time. And for anyone that's listened to this show with any regularity knows I'm still by no means fucking good at it at all, but I'm learning, and I've learned a ton about editing and stuff like that, and so my goal is to do that with Twitch and YouTube and some streaming and stuff like that here in the next coming weeks. So the point I wanted to make is if there's something you want to try, anything creative, if you want to learn something, you want to learn how to cook, you want to lose weight, you want to fucking try stand-up comedy, whatever it is, don't not do it because you think that it's going to be too hard. Okay, just try it. Just take one little step at a time. Don't get discouraged when you misstep, when you fall. Just keep trying, and you never know what could come of it. Just try it. Just try. That's all I'm trying to say is just try stuff. Don't hesitate to try stuff. This podcast. When I dropped Adam Wastes Time, I know I'm going on a rant here, but you guys are used to that by now. When I dropped Adam Wastes Time and started just focusing on Remember the Game, it was because I had found something that I was really passionate about doing. I was talking to a fellow comedian a few nights ago who has a podcast, and he was like, dude, it must be so fun to do a podcast that you actually enjoy doing. And I said, yeah, it is, and I think a lot of people launch them and they don't enjoy doing it. They just do it because it's the thing to do. And I'm telling you right now, it will not last. If that's the case, eventually you'll get sick of it. The quality will suck and you'll drop it by the wayside. If you want to do a podcast, find something you really enjoy and then double down on that. And that's what I've done with this. It's basically, this is nothing more than an excuse for me to justify the time I spend playing video games. But I'm so grateful that anyone listens to it, much less as many of you that do listen to it do, and you guys have taken time to support it. So thank you guys so much. I'm really excited for the projects I'm working on. I've got about a month to get them all figured out if I want to launch them with episode 50. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on over the next few weeks. But there'll still be an episode every week. I'm not going anywhere. And just thank you guys very much. I know I say it 100 times an episode, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys supporting the show. And if you do support the show and you do like it, please leave us a review. I don't know what they do, but I think we need them. So that's all. Rant over. Let's talk some video games, then we'll get to Boy and His Blob. The NES online service, it's on the Switch. Some people have talked about how they don't like it and how they want Virtual Console back and things like that. I just wanted to say I enjoy it. I think it's $20 a year here in Canada. I believe it's $25 a year, something like that. I pay for it with the gold coins I earn on the Nintendo eShop just by buying games. You can register your games, and it doesn't matter if they're digital or physical. You can register them and things like that. And you can use those. You get, it's not a lot of money, but I save it up for the year, and by the time my Nintendo Online service is due for renewal, I have enough money in that to just do it for free. And if you don't know what it is, basically they've gotten rid of their Virtual Console, and now you just get NES. Every month they add 2 or 3 new NES games, and they're up to almost 40 NES games that you can play on the go anywhere you want online. There's save states and stuff like that, and it's a great way to get to play some of these old games. I'd love to see it improved. Obviously, I want SNES games on there more than anything on the world, which I would bet everything I own is announced at E3 in a month. But I like it. It's a fraction of the price of Xbox Live and PS Plus, and you get a fraction of the services for it. So that's all. I like it. That's basically all I had down in my notes, was to say that I like NES Online. Xbox has just released a digital-only console, which actually I think is very cool, to the point where I got an email this morning from Best Buy just saying it's available now, and I went and checked it out because that interests me. I love digital gaming. I don't have a lot of space. I don't want a ton of discs laying around. And there's a few games on Xbox I'd be interested in playing, but it's $300 here in Canada. I think it's $250 in the States. Which I think is too much for a console that's as old as that. PlayStation's starting to talk about the PS5. This is going to be outdated software soon. When it gets down to like preferably $149, maybe $179, maybe I'll look at it, but $299 to play or to buy something that I can't even buy used games for doesn't interest me anymore. Maybe if it gets cheaper. And that's the other thing I wanted to bring up, is that makes me wonder even more than I already have if there's a new Xbox announcement coming at E3, because Microsoft is going to be at E3, and Sony's already dropped details about the PS5, and I know some people are wondering, so where's the Xbox 2 or 4 or whatever they decide to call it? I don't think they're going to announce one at E3. I don't think you release a system like you just did with the digital. If they just released the new Xbox One all digital console, and then 6 weeks later or whatever it is, announce the details for the new Xbox, that kills your old hardware sales, because everyone's going to wait for the new Xbox. I do not understand why they would do that. So I don't think there's a new hardware announcement coming anytime soon from Xbox. I'm still of the belief that they're going to team up with Nintendo, and there may not even be another Xbox. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking out of my ass. By the time you listen to this, it may have already been disproven. But I'm curious. It has me fascinated. I'm curious to see what Microsoft does. I would love to see Microsoft just get out of the console business, work with Nintendo to improve Nintendo Online, bring Xbox Live to the Nintendo Switch, charge us $60 a year or whatever it is for a full-fledged online service, and give us more games. I would pay it in a heartbeat. Fucking just do better, But the Xbox is never going to beat the PlayStation 4, and the new Xbox is not going to touch the PS5. It's, it just isn't. So do something better with your time and your money, Microsoft. Quickly, shout out to Best Buy. Go fuck yourselves. Leave me alone. I looked at that Xbox this morning and then closed the website, and then got an email like 2 hours later saying, hey, are you still interested? From Best Buy, just being like, hey, it says, I'm reading it right here, we don't want you to miss out. And it's the web page to go buy the Xbox. Like, fuck off. That's so creepy. And I know they're not the only store out there that does that. If you see other people or consumers are on your fucking website looking at items and then they don't buy them, don't email us being like, hey, don't miss out on it, because now you're just stalking us and it's fucking weird. So go away, Best Buy. Okay, that's my ranting about current games. Quickly, what am I playing this week? Not a lot. I haven't had a lot of time to play. I've been on the road a lot for stand-up comedy this week. I'm still kind of grinding through Shining Force on my Switch. I loved it to start. I am starting to get bored of it, but I think I'm getting close to the end, so I got to finish it. I'm also almost done Resident Evil on the PlayStation Classic. I fucking love it. I can't wait to play the rest of them. I wish I had played this more as a kid. Fucking dope. It's great. And I finished Kirby's Adventure on the Switch on the NES Online, just something I had started quite a while ago. It was one of my favorites growing up. And I'll tell you, if you don't play Kirby games because you think they're too easy, give this one a shot. This one and Kirby Superstar on the Super Nintendo are both fucking awesome. And they're easy, but they're not as easy as like the current Kirby games. They're worth your time. And if you have NES Online, they're free. So just try them. Okay, that's what I've been playing. That's my rants. This week we're talking about one of my absolute favorite games growing up, which is A Boy and His Blob for the NES. This is one of those games my brother and I would rent over and over and over and over again. We had no chance at beating it, but we still kept renting it. We played it so much, just listening to the music. And there's basically one song you guys are about to learn because it's the only song in the fucking game outside of the title track. The music just flashed me back to being a kid. We would go to the video store, rent a couple video games, get a Slurpee, and then come home and just play those video games all weekend. We've all done it. We all did it back in the day. It was the fucking best. And that was our game we rented. It was Boy and His Blob and The Addams Family and Ghostbusters were the three we would rent over and over and over again. And in hindsight, this is easily the best of the three. And that's not saying much because none of them are very good. Good stuff. They made a remake of it a year or two ago, I think, or maybe it was a few years ago. I never did play it, but it looked cool. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the original. My guest this week is my friend Ty. He is a stand-up comedian from Fort Mac. You may remember him from the infamous Halo episode of a few weeks ago where the sound was not good. I apologize for that. The sound in this one is better. Still not perfect. I will not make the mistake of not taking my headphones on the road again. Just please grind through this episode with the sound. Ty's a great guest. This is a great game. Cue the music. There it is. Get used to it because it's the only music in the fucking game. And let's talk A Boy and His Blob for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Originally released in North America in January of 1990. Check it out. Here we go. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Everyone that listens to this podcast knows about our illustrious CEO, my dog Molly. But the other silent partner behind the scenes is my wife. And let me tell you, my friends, a 17-year relationship with another person that has to talk to and live with you is a lot harder to maintain than one with a dog. We've had our ups and downs, and as you all know, a relationship isn't all sunshine and rainbows. They can be a lot of work. You get out what you put in when it comes to relationships, and talking to a therapist can be a fantastic way to put in some work. They can help you work through your issues, learn to communicate better, and even just provide you with an ear to bend when you need it. I've talked to my therapist about my relationships, especially when it came to my stand-up comedy career and how much I was away from home, and they helped me work on ways to keep my relationship strong even when I was out on the road. It turned out our relationship was actually better when I was out on the road, but that's a story for another day. And I know, right? Therapy. Who has the time these days? BetterHelp hears you, and they're making it easy. Fill out a quick form online, and they'll match you up with a therapist that suits your needs and that'll work around your schedule. You pick the meet times, and you can get your therapy fix from anywhere, over video, phone, or just chat. Become your own soulmate, whether you're looking for one or not. Visit BetterHelp.com/rememberthegame today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/rememberthegame. Okay, so we're going to dip back into the NES pool this week. Still on the road. I can't remember. I don't know if this episode will go up before or after any of the other ones where I'm on the road. But we are on the road recording in Fort McMurray, Alberta. I'm sitting here with Ty Brandt, comedian from Fort Mac. How is it going, my friend?
It's going well, buddy. It's going well.
We have a sold-out show in 3.5 hours, so we're just sitting here drinking because that's how comics get ready to go on stage. They numb their feelings.
Yeah, if I have to walk up straight and not stumble to the stage, I don't think I'm going to do good.
I'm not going to do good anyway. It doesn't fucking matter. But before then, we're going to talk video games. And as you'll know from the intro, you have no doubt just listened to, this week, we are talking about a little cult classic from the Nintendo Entertainment System, A Boy and His Blob. I like this game.
I loved it.
Did you own it?
I did.
Fuck, I wish.
I did. I had it on the original Nintendo.
This was like, I'll see, maybe you didn't word this, but like, everyone had those games they rented over and over and over and over again. Or these moles. This was my game. My brother and I would rent this game every 2 weeks. Fucking just rent it. Like, we could have bought it for the amount of money we fucking spent renting it.
Yeah.
And just loved it. There was something. Did you play the remake? Because they remade it a few years ago.
They made it onto, I think it was the Game Boy Advance, and then it was again onto the Wii. But
I believe it was on the Wii.
I never played them. I just played the original, and I was happy with it.
Yeah.
By the time the remakes were made, I was on to different types of games.
Of course.
But as a puzzle game, I loved it as a kid.
Yeah, it's a charming, like, this game oozes charm. And the thing about this game is, like, there's a lot of shit, and we'll get into it now in the next 20 minutes or so. There's a lot of shit that this game does wrong.
Oh yeah,
a lot of shit.
There's no guidance.
No, none. But at the end of the day, it's like to me, the NES had games that just were masterpieces. And when I say that, I think of Super Mario Brothers 3. I think of The Legend of Zelda. Just great games. They had fucking horrendous games like Ghostbusters that I'm going to someday do an episode on and just shit all over. And then they had games where they're like, if you played it for the first time today, you might be like, this isn't that good. But when you played it over and over as a kid, there's something about it where it had just enough good in it to overlook all the bad and just enjoy it. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying. It was coming on. So it was David Crane, the guy that created the game, and he had done Pitfall. So he had come off of Pitfall onto this. And at the time, it was great. I think it won like parental awards, and it won Best in Show at CES, and like it had done really well for a puzzle game. The problem was, part of the puzzle was that they gave you zero guidance.
No.
There was no real instructions. They never taught you how to play.
No.
You didn't know what the story was, really.
No. Okay, and so just quickly, so Crane also actually did Ghostbusters.
Did he?
First Ghostbusters video game. So he did some good and some bad. Fucking Ghostbusters. But this game, so we rented it. We never had the manual. If you owned it, you must have had the manual.
Didn't have anything in it either.
It doesn't sound like the manual had fucking much going in it.
There was nothing.
My understanding of, because you're right, growing up playing it, I had no fucking idea why I was running around with this blob trying to collect treasure. Like, I had no fucking idea.
You just knew that's what you were supposed to do.
Right.
I don't know why.
My understanding now, having done my minimal 33 minutes of homework that I do for all these episodes, is that the blob's home planet had been taken over by some bad guys that were making them eat nothing but junk food.
Yeah.
So Blob came to Earth to get somebody to help him stop these bad guys. And to stop them, you had to get vitamins and go back to Blob's planet with vitamins. Blobonia, that's right. Fuck. But to buy the vitamins, you had to go under what looks like New York City with this blob in caverns and collect treasure that is just floating.
Giant diamonds and sacks of money.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Fucking chests of gold and jewels.
So the basic concept of the game is you go underground with your blob, collect enough treasure to buy vitamins, then fly back to Blobonia with the blob to feed vitamins to the enemy so he will go away, and then the blob people don't have to eat just junk food anymore.
Do you know how long it took me to figure out how the fuck I was supposed to fly from the New York City subway system to Blobonia?
I never did. So
okay, well,
you did? Like, did you
did.
beat it? You beat it as a kid?
I beat it as a kid, but it was years later. It was like when I first got, I was 5 when it came out. I think I was 7 or 8 when I first played it. And it was cool because the inner fat kid of me always had dreams of, like, if I ate candy, what powers would it give me type shit, right? So it played into that childhood, stupidity of, well, maybe that's not the right word, but that childhood obsession of different imaginations of things I could do if I did this. And, like, I wish I could bit by a spider like Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just, if jellybeans could give me powers, what would it be? Right?
I think I
identify with the blob, not the kid.
The blob. I think that's the primary charm of this game is, like, every kid wanted, like, an alien buddy or a monster, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
this game was coming out at the same time as, like, The Last Starfighter and E.T.
Do you remember My Pet Monster?
Yeah, didn't that have Yeah,
It had,
the
like,
blue guy under the bed. No, it was
this
a cartoon.
Yeah, it was a cartoon.
Okay.
It was this little monster animal thing that had handcuffs, and when he had handcuffs on, he was a stuffed animal.
Yeah.
But when he took the handcuffs off, he became a real life monster. Like I had a toy, I loved him, and that's what Blob was. Blob
Yeah.
was like it was like every kid wanted an ET, wanted a My Pet Monster,
Well, it was
wanted a
all
sidekick.
at the same time. It was like this foreign alien would come to Earth and befriend a child rather than an adult.
Yeah, right.
Right. So it was the exact. It was 89. It was the same time.
Which like in hindsight, yeah, if he came down and he really needed help, like go to an adult,
the navigator,
yeah,
and things like that.
How about instead of risking this child's life in these vicious caverns, you just go to a rich adult and be like, hey, can I borrow $3,000 for vitamins?
To this day, I'm still scared of worms in the subway system,
dude. So that's one of the things I put down. So like, okay, so you start off like in the city, and then you go into the subway, and then you end up. Like, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the only way into the caverns from the subway is at some point feed the blob a bean that makes him into a hole. We'll explain the beans in a second, and then go through the hole. Down you're in these caverns.
Yeah.
Those caverns legitimately scared the fuck out of me as a kid. They scared me. They were, and I'm not afraid of caves. I'm not. What the fuck is the word when you're afraid of like small spaces?
Claustrophobic.
Like none of that bothers me. I'm not afraid of water, but those caves terrified me. They were just dark, evil.
Little Adam never went spelunking.
I hated them. I fucking like this game creeped me out as a kid because I was like, you don't know when you're gonna just fall and die. You're in these fucking.
That was one of the problems with the game.
Oh.
Was that it's like, oh, I've got nowhere to go but down this hole. What happens if I go down that
Right.
hole? I don't know. Right? So you were scared.
So yeah, okay. So just like I can't imagine you listening to this and you never played it, but in case that's the case, you understand the story now. So the basic gameplay is you control the kid. I don't think they ever name him. I think he's just boy.
Yeah.
You can name him whatever you want. It's you. So
You're supposed to identify with
yeah. So you control the boy, and the blob follows you by hopping along behind you, and you can go running away, and then you gotta kind of wait for the blob
it's
to
a
catch up.
side scroller with I think 5 or 6 panels.
Right. That's exactly. And then vertical up and downs and stuff as well.
But you couldn't change like verticality yourself.
No, only by the gate. Like so, the boy couldn't
top
jump.
level, like there were stairs, but you could walk around the stairs if you walked fast enough.
Right.
Or if you walked slow enough, go down the stairs. But
Right.
that was it.
There was no jump. Like
No.
the boy couldn't. The only way the boy could jump was to make the blob into like a trampoline.
Yeah.
And then bounce on him. So the boy, all you did, literally, the only controls in this game are to run left and right, and then I guess you use up to climb ladders when you make him into like a ladder and stuff like that. And then one button whistles to get the blob to come running back to you or to like change out of whatever shape he's turned into, and the other button throws jelly beans. And that's all the controls in the game. And then like select scrolls through your jelly beans. So the blob is following you, and you've got like 24 different flavors of jelly beans, and some of them are like, because that's one of the things I loved about this game was because this was way before Jelly Bellies. I remember thinking like, wonder what some of these jelly beans would taste like. Like a root beer jelly bean sounds fucking awesome. But then there was like ketchup, there was tangerines or something, there was vanilla, root beer, cola, like just all these weird fucking jelly bean flavors. And so you feed the jelly beans to the blob, and with each jelly bean he turns into a different item or a different.
Yeah, he was the utility.
He was your
weapons.
items. Yeah. And so the concept of the game is you traverse all these puzzles using the blob in his various forms, from feeding him beans to go around and collect this treasure. And like you said, like after you, because the subway is easy. You go down into the subway. There's only like 1 or 2 treasures. You use a ladder to like climb up and get them.
Yep.
Because you turn them into a ladder. That's it. Then you have to make him into a hole on one of like 6 panels. Walk through this hole and pray.
Experimented.
Yeah, and just pray that as you fall, because like basically like 90% of the game takes place in these caverns under the city, and once you fall through this hole, you're in these caverns. But you could walk through the hole and land on the ground right away and be exploring the caverns. You could walk through that hole and then be falling for fucking 8 screens
And then die.
And
you only got 5
5 lives, no continues, no extra lives.
No saves.
No saves. And this is one of the most frustrating things about this game. And this wasn't just this game. This was the NES back then. There was a lot of games like this. But the only way to learn was trial and error, especially pre-internet, right? Like if you tried it now, you could look up where to go, I guess, if you wanted to and shit like this. Back then, there was no internet. There was fucking nothing. Like the only way you learned where to go and where you would die and where you wouldn't die was trial and error. And once you fucked up 5 times, then it was start all over, and if you never played games in the 80s and the 90s, you might be like, that sounds fucking terrible. And maybe it is by today's standards, but that's just how we were raised. It was just like, okay, like let's gear up and try again. You know what I mean? It was an arcade machine at home.
I think it taught me patience because it would be I'd play after dinner and then it'd be bedtime and I'm not done my game. So you'd turn off the TV only and leave your Nintendo on. Go to school the next day.
Yeah.
Nintendo's still on. Come back, turn on the TV, and it's still music. Ding, 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 ding.
I used to prop something up in front of the light so my mom couldn't see I left the game on all day because, that was the thing. So, okay, so there's not only trial and error. And so the hole is just one example. Yeah. There's so much shit that can kill you. Rocks are falling on you. You can die in the water. Because you can fall into water, and if you don't, you can make Blob into a bubble and then float in this bubble in the water. And if he's not in the bubble, then you drown in the water.
But then you had there was stalactites and stalagmites in the caverns that would pop your bubble if you got too close.
Yeah.
But you had to go between them, which was to me the hardest part of the entire game.
It was, yeah.
As a kid trying to get between two, I couldn't. There was no I'm here and I just dropped down. You had to keep going back and forth, left, right, left, right, left, right to navigate in, and then left, right to get back up.
It was a sudden death
for me.
It was a sudden death version of the dam level in Ninja Turtles, where you're just trying to steer through the tightest little fucking areas in the water. You could die from. There were these I don't know if they must have been aliens, like the big worms and stuff.
They were supposed to, they were worm things that just basically bounced. So you couldn't fight them. You could just go underneath them. You just had to time it.
But that was so hard to do. It was
so difficult.
And because that's the other thing is so basically everything fucking kills you outside of treasure and the blob. Everything kills you. So you need to figure out what mode of the blob will get you by these things from which jelly bean. But there's no legend anywhere to tell you what each jelly bean does.
No, you had to figure it out, and they gave you ridiculous amounts of jelly bean. You'd have 95 of one that you'd only ever use 4 times in the whole game.
Right. And it just seemed so random. They just were give him 2 dozen of this one he needs once. Oh, he's going to need a lot of these. Give him 6. Yeah. And if he wastes one, he's fucked.
You only really needed to use the root beer once.
If you were good with the bubble in the water.
No, the root beer was the rocket. And
the root beer was the rocket. It was cola was the bubble.
The rocket took you from New York City to the cornfields of Blobonia. And that was the only time you ever needed it. It served no other purpose.
After you had vitamins.
And you'd do that the first time, right? And you get there, but there's nothing to do, so you don't know what the fuck you're doing. Yeah. So you need to go back and you're okay, well, I don't know what the hell. So you collect a little treasure, then you jump on the rocket ship again and go back what am I supposed to do? There was no guidance.
If this game came out today with no guidance, no telling you what every bean does, random announce of these, because you think if
kids
you've got
fuck it and never play.
Kids would totally say fuck it. If you had 50 of the root beer bean and you actually only ever need to use it one time, but you're looking at it and it turns them into a rocket and you don't know what the rocket does, and so you're well, what the fuck? There must be some point coming up where I need this rocket, but you never do. It's they just put it in as a mind fuck for kids to just make them try to figure out what to do. So you're trying to figure out what each bean does. Because a bean will turn him into a blowtorch. A bean will turn him into a ladder, into a bubble.
Never use the blowtorch.
Into a hole. It could blow through spider webs. That was one I actually did use because you could pick them up and run through a spider web with them, and then you wouldn't die when you touch a spider web.
Okay.
You could turn them into an umbrella, which would help you float and would protect you from rocks when you fall. Rocks. You could turn them into all these things, and so it's I bet you if you knew what you were doing, you could probably beat that game in about 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Probably.
But where the replay came and where you got your money's worth as a kid was first you need to figure out what each bean turns them into. And most kids, like you mentioned before we started recording, would write a list down of okay, this turns them into this turns them into this.
Had to. I needed to know what those beans did.
Once you know what all the beans do, then it's okay, well now I need to figure out okay, well, what mode will attack this puzzle? What mode will attack this puzzle? How do I get to this part? How do I get to this part? And it's frustrating, but at the same time, there's something about it where you're okay, well, now I know there's a diamond 2 screens above the screen I'm on right now, and the only way to get it is to turn Blob into a trampoline, stay completely stagnant, and just keep bouncing on him because you'll start bouncing a little higher, a little higher, a little higher, and if you push left or right at all, you're fucked. Because you're not going to land on that trampoline. And then by the time you've bounced high enough to get the diamond, you're probably bouncing too high. And then when you miss the trampoline, you die.
Ceiling. Yeah, you smash into the roof so hard that I'm okay, well, my character's dead. No, it's just, he just stops moving.
Yeah,
it is what it is. So just bang, it's just concussion, spinal contusion.
Fuck. So there's replay in figuring out the beans. There's replay in figuring out all the puzzles. There's replay in dying constantly and then knowing, okay, next time I need to use this bean in this exact part.
It was hours and hours of trial and error.
Right, and starting over and over
and
again.
You had to have patience.
And a ton of patience. And then the other thing that frustrates me about it, and this isn't, like I can excuse certain things like the trial and error thing because back in the day, that's just how we design video games, you know?
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is inexcusable in this game is that the kid handles like a bag of shit. He fucking gets running, and you almost pick up like a head of steam once you get moving forward. And then when you try to stop, he does this fucking weird slide where he kicks his ankle like a cartoon, like where he digs his heels in, like. But it's so hard to like get him to stop where you want him to stop sometimes.
Right off the edge.
Right, or you slide off an edge and then you're fucked. Like once, because as soon as you fall, you're fucked. You can't call Blob to come save you, you know?
Yeah.
Or trying to get Blob to be in the right place to fucking feed him something sometimes. Like if you want to feed him a whole bean, you had to get him standing in the right place because if you fell through the hole in the wrong place, you'd fucking fall and die. It was just like so many things wrong about it, but they put just enough charm and just enough originality and puzzle problem solving in it. It was a good looking game
for its time. For 89.
It did. The music was fucking obnoxious. It starts out okay. So this is going to be the first episode in the history of this podcast where it's the same song 3 times because I usually use a different song for the intro for before the chat starts and then at the end of the chat. This game literally has one song.
Was there any better music in the remakes? Maybe you can use that.
Maybe. It's just so if you liked the music that you've already heard twice, go play Boy and His Blob because you will literally listen to that song until you die. And it's like a 15-second fucking loop over and over and over. And it's like respectfully to the powers that be at Boy and His Blob headquarters. This game isn't that big that the cartridge was full and you were like, oh, we can't get any more music on here. You were just like, we have a song that's fucking good enough. And you know what? That fucking, what's the name? The dude that designed it? What's his name?
Crane.
David Crane. He also designed the Ghostbusters game that also has that one shitty fucking song.
Before he presented
to
Nintendo, day of, he was like before CES, I think it was. I read an article that he was in his hotel room finishing the game, and he had stayed up for like 60-something hours before, and then he's presenting it, and then at night he'd go back to his hotel room and fix all the bugs from the playable demo that was going on at CES. So the game was finished literally like the day before launch.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, so like that's why he didn't put any music into it.
All right. I'm not going to excuse it, but I will. Yeah.
You had an unfinished product.
That's fair. That's fair. It's a weird game, but it's one of those ones that like, I think when most people think of the NES, they instantly pardon me, mentioned earlier Mario, they think of Zelda, they think of Kirby, of Contra.
This was a hidden independent gem.
This was an absolute this is an off the beaten path NES game that's really good. And like I'm a loyal Nintendo guy. The Super Nintendo is my favorite console of all time, but there's always going to be a soft spot in my heart for the NES because for most people our age, the NES was where you start. If you didn't have I never had an Atari or a ColecoVision or any of that stuff. Like then my NES was where I began.
I had a Commodore, but I don't remember it.
Okay, right. So it's the NES, right? Like that's the one that most of us started with, and it's like there are a lot of bad games on the NES. If that library has got to be 800 or 900 games long, and I bet you anything 650 of them are fucking terrible. This isn't terrible. If you never played it and have no nostalgia for it, I could understand you trying it and being like, this is fucking dumb.
I'll be 5 minutes into it. Like, yeah. No.
I totally. And I could understand that and I would be okay with that. But if you played this as a kid, you could fire it up now, probably die 5 times in 10 minutes and be like, well, I've had my fix. But it would give you those warm and fuzzy nostalgia feelings. This was a fun game, man.
Absolutely.
I like that cover art is burned into my mind, that red yellow lettering that was on it, you know what I mean? Like the Blob just seemed like such a cool guy. I always adored the whistling aspect of it, how you would hit B, and the NES had terrible sound for a lot of their games because it just wasn't capable of doing sound, but the whistle sounded like a whistle, and you would hit B and it was like the kid would put his fingers in his mouth and do the like, I'm not going to whistle into the mic because you're going to hear like but it would just be like the, and then Blob would come running up. And sometimes he would be smiling because he'd be happy to be with you. And then if you threw a bean and he missed it, then his face would go sad.
Face, yeah.
And then you'd have to like, I would almost waste a bean to keep him smiling sometimes. Just be like, well, here, man, I'm sorry. Like, chill
out.
out.
Have one of these I don't need.
Right, yeah. Here, have a fucking root beer one. I have 2,000 of them. Like the Blob, like, he almost felt like a dog. Like he was like your sidekick. You know what I mean? And I don't know how they managed to get you to feel this attachment to this fucking alien in an 8-bit NES game, but they did. Like, I love Blob. He's really cool.
Making me want to go out and get a Blob tattoo right now.
Okay, I'm not gonna go that far, but no, yeah, it's I never beat it. I wish I had. It's on my NES Classic because I went in and played with the insides of my NES Classic, and I haven't fired it up yet. And I'm pretty tempted to just fire it up and give it a run because this is a great game.
Can you get that on Switch?
No.
Oh.
But that's one of those ones I would love to see because the Switch has their NES Online where they keep dropping 2 or 3 NES games a month, and I would love to see that game pop up. I don't know if it will because that remake of it is out now, so maybe they don't want the original out. But I wish they would. 20 minutes on an NES game is usually where I'm out of shit to say. Have you got anything else to say before we score this thing, Ty?
We were saying you couldn't jump.
Yeah.
But you could give him a strawberry one, and he would turn into a platform so you could walk across holes. Yeah.
A bridge.
You could give him... I think one of the biggest puzzles that stumped me out of the whole game was near the end when you're about to leave the subway. You could only get out one way, and it was to remove a manhole cover. And I couldn't figure out how the fuck to do it. It took me forever. That's when I learned that's when you use the apple. The apple jelly bean turned him into a jack.
Applejack.
Popped the manhole cover off so that you could get out.
Right. Some of the beans seem random. Some of them, like what they turn him into, makes sense. Like you give him cinnamon, and he turns into a blowtorch. And it's like, oh, because the cinnamon one's kind of hot. So now he's breathing fire. And like you said, the Applejacks, you know, or the soda one or cola or whatever it was called, turns him into a bubble because of the fizz in that. Yeah. Some of them make complete sense.
Tangerine was trampoline.
Right. And then some of them made no fucking sense at all. And you had to just figure it out. But it was clever. I just thought of it, just looking at my notes. I know we kind of harped on this earlier about the trial and error thing. But that's one of the things about this game is sometimes you come across an obstacle. And part of the reason it's so trial and error and stuff is not that, because like if you use the wrong bean, sometimes you don't get another chance. It kills you. You know what I mean? Like most of the time it does. Like you come across an obstacle where you're looking at it, you're like, okay, what'll fucking get me through that? And then if you try the wrong item, not only is it like, okay, well that didn't work, let's try another item, but there goes one of your 5 lives. Now you gotta get back there and try again. Yep. And that's where the over and over and over. And the NES was so guilty of killing you on purpose. I think that a lot of games were guilty of killing you on purpose, so you had to start over, so the game was longer. You know, you couldn't beat it in 20 minutes the first time. Nobody beat that game the first time they played it. It'd be impossible. And I think that was, you know, like when you were charging $60, $70, $80 for a game in the fucking 80s and 90s, you needed kids to get their money's worth, right? And that was one way to do it, was to just kill them over and over again, so they'd have to start over. Good game. Ty, what would you give A Boy and His Blob on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'm going to give it a 6. It was definitely fun. It's got a lot of good nostalgia. But once you beat it once, there was no replayability.
None.
It was a lot of trial and error. It gave you no guidance. So I'm docking points for never explaining anything to you. You know, trial and error and figuring things out is a cool concept, but for this, it got frustrating a lot of the time.
Agreed.
Graphics were decent. It loses a point for music, but I'm gonna say 6.
6. All right.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. It was okay.
Yeah. I would. Yeah, I agree with that. I'll give it, if you played it as a kid and you have nostalgia for it, I'll give it a 7 because it's worth going back for the nostalgia of. It's almost like being reunited with like watching videos of it. I was like, hey, it's Blob. Like, I love that stupid
hey,
Blob.
Buddy.
I was like, what's up, man? So if you have nostalgia for it, I'll give it like a 6.5 to a 7. If you never played it before and then you tried it now, I give it a 5 maybe. I'm like, it's not a great game. There's better puzzles. Like every aspect of this game has been done better since.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But it was a pretty original game at the time. And Blob is awesome. So, good stuff, buddy. Good job. Thanks, Ty.
Hey, thanks.
Let's go tell some jokes.
Oh, we could try.
Done. And that's going to do it for this week's episode. Ty, thank you so much for talking Boy and His Blob with me. And all of you, thank you so much for listening and your support through the last 45 episodes. I'm so grateful. I know you guys know that. I basically give you all hand jobs through the microphone every 7 days because you listen to the podcast, but I really do appreciate it. Boy and His Blob, if you haven't played it, it's not really available fucking anywhere, but the remake is on a few things. I suggest trying it. It was a fun game back in the day. I have it on my NES Classic, and I'm pretty tempted to fire it up this weekend and see if I can. I mean, I'm not going to be able to beat it, but at least I'll die a few more times just for old time's sake. Good enough, you guys. Like I mentioned off the top, I have some exciting things that I'm working on. I'm really fired up for them. Maybe nobody's going to care, but that's not the point. I'm hoping to launch them all with episode 50 in a few weeks. Until then, I've got some great episodes lined up, ready to go. I will not miss a Wednesday. There'll be a new episode for you guys every week. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a good review. Please throw us a follow on Instagram or Twitter at MemberTheGame. And I will check in with you guys again in 7 days. Go play some video games, take it easy, and I'll see you later. Cheers.